You take about 20,000 breaths today. You won't notice a single one, and that invisibility is exactly the problem. Right now, as you read this, your mouth is probably open. Your shoulders are probably creeping toward your ears. Your chest is rising and falling in short, shallow bursts, and your body is quietly, persistently, running a stress response you have no idea is happening. Breathing feels like the most automatic thing you do. It feels like something that simply cannot go wrong. But the real answer is far stranger. Because somewhere between the ancient savannas where your species was born and the climate-controlled rooms where you now live, you forgot how to do the one thing your body never stops doing. Here is what that costs you. Start with the nose. You have two of them, two nostrils, and most people treat them as interchangeable. They are not. Each nostril connects to a different side of your brain. The right nostril activates your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight engine. The left nostril activates your parasympathetic system. Rest, repair, calm. Ancient yogic traditions knew this thousands of years ago. They called the practice Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, and they used it to deliberately shift mental states. Modern neuroscience, centuries later, confirmed exactly what they described. Researcher Shirley Tellis, a neuroscientist at the Patanjali Research Foundation, has spent decades studying how nasal breathing affects brainwave activity. Her work shows that breathing through the right nostril increases oxygen consumption and raises cortisol levels. Breathing through the left lowers both. Breathing through your mouth bypasses all of it. When you default to mouth breathing, you skip the entire filtering, warming, and neurological regulation system your nose was built to provide. But when did mouth breathing become the default? Go back far enough, and the answer is in your skull. Your ancestors had large, wide jaws, broad, forward-set faces shaped by decades of chewing raw, fibrous, unprocessed food. Anthropologist and author James Nestor spent years documenting the jaw records of ancient skulls and found something striking. Pre-agricultural humans almost universally had straight teeth, wide palates, and open nasal airways. Then, roughly 10,000 years ago, something changed. Farming arrived. Food got softer. Jaws stopped working as hard. And over hundreds of generations, the human jaw began to shrink. Not because of genetics, but because of use. Bone is a dynamic material. It responds to pressure and stress. When you stop using it, it narrows. When the jaw narrows, the palate narrows. When the palate narrows, the nasal airway collapses. And when the nasal airway collapses, you open your mouth to compensate. Modern humans are the first humans in history to have crooked teeth as a default. Not because our teeth got bigger, but because our jaws got smaller. This is not genetic destiny. It is a mechanical consequence of the softest diet any humans have ever eaten. And the body pays the price in ways that seem entirely unrelated to breathing. Take carbon dioxide. Your instinct is to think of it as the waste product, the exhaust your lungs expel. But carbon dioxide does something critical inside your body. It is the trigger that releases oxygen from your red blood cells into your tissues. Without enough carbon dioxide in your bloodstream, your cells cannot absorb the oxygen your lungs are pulling in. This is called the Bohr effect, described by Danish physiologist Christian Bohr in 1904. Here is the paradox this creates. When you breathe fast and shallow, the way most modern people do when stressed, anxious, or simply sitting at a desk, you expel carbon dioxide too quickly. Your blood carbon dioxide drops. Your cells become oxygen deprived even though your lungs are working. Your brain interprets this as a threat. It triggers more breathing, faster breathing, which expels more carbon dioxide, which makes the oxygen problem worse. You are, in essence, suffocating yourself while breathing continuously. The harder you try, the worse it gets. Researcher Dr. Peter Litchfield, one of the leading behavioral breathing scientists in the world, calls this the hyperventilation paradox. He has documented how chronic overbreathing, breathing too much, too fast, too shallowly, is tied to anxiety disorders, panic attacks, chronic fatigue, poor sleep, and elevated cardiovascular stress. Not because people are sick, because they are breathing incorrectly all day, every day, and the body never gets to reset. The correct breathing rate in terms of carbon dioxide balance and nervous system regulation is somewhere between 5.5 and 6 breaths per minute. The average modern adult breathes at 15 to 20 breaths per minute. You are doing nearly 3 times more work than you need to and achieving less oxygen delivery in the process. Slow down and something remarkable happens. A 2018 study published in Psychophysiology found that slow, rhythmic breathing at 5 to 6 breaths per minute produced measurable increases in heart rate variability, a key marker of nervous system resilience and cardiovascular health. The same breathing pattern used in Catholic rosary prayer and Buddhist mantra chanting naturally lands at this rate. Researchers Alberto Bernardi and Luciano Bernardi, who studied monks, yogis, and meditators, found that across radically different spiritual traditions, the breathing patterns converged on the same rhythm. They were not doing it on purpose. They had arrived there through trial and error across centuries. The body already knew. Now think about what happens when you sleep. 1 in 4 adults has some form of sleep-disordered breathing, snoring, apnea, waking up exhausted despite 8 hours in bed. The cause, in most cases, is mouth breathing during sleep. The jaw falls open. The tongue drops back. The airway partially collapses. The brain spends the night waking itself up, microseconds at a time, to restore airflow. You never fully descend into deep sleep. Your body never fully repairs. Stanford sleep researcher Dr. William Dement, who spent 50 years studying human sleep, argued that sleep-disordered breathing was the most underdiagnosed health crisis in the modern world. He estimated that the vast majority of people who suffer from it have no idea. They blame stress, they blame their diet, they blame their schedule. It is none of those things. It is the position of their jaw at 3 in the morning. The intervention sounds absurd. It is a piece of surgical tape. Small, placed gently over the lips at bedtime. Mouth breathers who tape their mouths shut during sleep report consistently that they sleep deeper, dream more vividly, wake up with less congestion, and feel more rested after fewer hours. Clinical trials of mouth taping in mild sleep apnea patients have shown reductions in apnea events, lower heart rate, and improved morning oxygen saturation. You do not need a machine. You need to keep your mouth closed. But here is the layer beneath all of this that almost no one talks about. Breathing is the only autonomic function you can consciously control. Your heart rate, your digestion, your hormone release. None of those respond to your will in real time, but your breath does. And because the breath sits at the intersection of voluntary and involuntary, it is the lever that reaches every system the other levers cannot touch. When you slow your breath, your heart slows. When your heart slows, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, reduces its firing rate. When the amygdala quiets, your prefrontal cortex comes back online. Rational thought returns. Emotional flooding recedes. Focus sharpens. Not because you thought your way into calm, because you breathed your way there. This is not metaphor. This is vagal nerve anatomy. The vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in your body, running from your brainstem through your heart and lungs and down to your gut, is directly stimulated by slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing. It is the physical cable that connects breath to every organ. Every slow exhale you take sends a calming signal down that cable. Every fast, shallow breath sends a distress signal instead. Your ancestors used their bodies differently. They chewed for hours. They breathed through their noses. They rested in postures that kept their airways open. They moved through a world that constantly demanded physical breath, sprinting, carrying, climbing, which meant their lungs were regularly and deeply used. The breath was never passive. It was a tool. You have the same equipment, the same nose, the same vagus nerve, the same carbon dioxide chemistry, the same 20,000 breaths waiting for you today. The question is what you do with them. Tonight before you sleep, try something. Close your mouth. Breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out through your nose for 6. 4 counts in. 4, hold. 6 counts out. Do it 10 times. Notice what happens to your shoulders. Notice what happens to your chest. Notice how the room seems slightly quieter than it did a moment ago. That quietness is not the room. That is your nervous system remembering something it always knew. That is 300,000 years of human evolution finally getting what it was always designed for. You take about 20,000 breaths today. This time, you might actually feel one.